In today's video, I'm welcoming Akiko. For the beginning, I have to say that I'm happy to finally have somebody from Japanese community. When I came to Canada, I found many dear friends among the members of Victoria's Japanese community. And when I started my project, I knocked on some doors. I wanted to bring their stories, bring their voices, and share them with the rest of the audience, because I found them to be a perfect fit for my project. But although I was waiting, I got lucky. I was waiting actually since April. I got lucky with you in November, and I'm so grateful. Thank you, Akiko, for showing up today, and welcome to the Liminal World.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
You and I are both immigrants, and I want to start from that point. When did you come to Canada?
I initially came here in 2006 as a working holiday student to explore the world and just casually checking out. And then after that, I went back to Japan, came back to them, some colleges, and after years and doing back and forth, I finally came here to immigrate to Canada in 2016. And it's been for 4 years since.
So actually 10 years you were going back and forth, and you had a pretty good time to decide whether you want to stay in Japan or relocate to Canada. So what made you decide to come here at the end?
Well, obviously, I didn't have an intention to be immigrated to Canada initially. And well, I was born, grown up in Japan, was raised by Japanese family, and it's always normal to be devoting my entire life in Japan. But my working holiday changed my life as to see the different culture that I never expected, and some concepts such as being assertive and women's empowerment and all those things just opened my eyes, and I started to see the different alternative life that I could possibly have in Canada. And I met my common law partner, and we decided to live together, and Canada would be the better suitable place to live together.
Nice story. I love your story, and I can relate to you because I also spent a decade going back and forth from my country of origin, Serbia. So I was like spending 6 months in one place and then coming back, and then again, and then coming back. And I think that gave me a lot of gave me a lot of ground. I grounded myself in that idea that I want to go and that I want to put myself in that direction, which brings me a lot of less discomfort when I landed here, because I wasn't fighting with nostalgia, nothing, you know, I was just ready to embrace a new chapter of my life. For this video, I would love to talk with you about your job.
Sure.
It's very interesting, and I changed a lot of job positions, and I've been in many different fields, but I wish I spent some years in doing what you're doing. So we have to talk about that. Akiko, you're an educational counselor who is working for one agency.
Correct.
And that agency is actually targeting students from Japan.
That's right.
Who wants to come to study English in Canada. So I want to know, what it's like to be an educational counselor?
Being an educational counselor has multiple hats to switch to the other. Sometimes we could be a guidance counselor at school, coaching students towards the right directions. Sometimes we could be a translator and introducing some better understanding of the government policies and school systems and cultures to the student who is not exposed so much to. Or sometimes could be parents coaching the young students to achieve their goals in better ways, or even motivating them. So I would say being an educational counselor involves a lot of roles and responsibilities every day.
Yes, you're actually wearing a lot of hats, and it's a huge responsibility. As you said, you're in a sense being a parent, being sometimes a big sister, big buddy. You're nurturing all those students, and you are with them while they're going through that transition. So it's a very, very hard and demanding job, but I'm guessing it's rewarding at the end.
Yes, it is. By guiding all students brings me back to the memory when I initially came to Canada by myself. I didn't know much languages or cultures and what's common or what's not. And there's always someone who mentored me and helped me to go through the phrases. I always trying to be the right person for the student who is coming next.
So what you're actually saying is that your own experience helped you a lot to do
Absolutely.
what you do.
That helps me to put myself into their shoes and develop some compassion and patience. And yeah, that's always the key component to keep motivated to go through this.
Great, great. You're a real parent, I can tell. Just can you give me actually the list of your daily tasks? What are you doing actually on a daily basis?
My clients categorize into two groups. One who lives in Japan, who is planning to come to Canada to study. And the other group is the other ones who lives in here already and who is trying to figure out their futures. So there are two groups. And for those who live in Japan, they need a lot of assistance to pick the right school for them, what's the best planning, what they wanted to achieve during the time they're staying here. Some of them want to focus on gaining work experiences here, whereas others are more serious about studying and achieving diploma or certificates perhaps. So it's all up to individual what they wanted to focus on. And our advice will follow accordingly, depending on what they say. And we also assist them purchasing the flight tickets or getting health insurances and the cell phones, and those minor things might bring a lot of questions for international students because they don't know anything about it. So those tasks involve more work than you could imagine.
Okay, they are brave, and they're curious, and that's good for the start. That's what you need. And then you start digging, and once they find you, they can actually pace themselves and make that path and make it possible.
Absolutely.
I love many times you're mentioning about, or maybe I'm getting that impression, it's all about planning. When you mentioned Japanese students is all about planning. And I want to hear more about that, because most of my moves were not planned, not that much. The one that brought me to Canada, yes, but the ones prior, when I was younger, when I was in their age, no, I wasn't a planner. So can you tell me more? Because it's probably a cultural thing. So I want to hear more.
Absolutely. We like to plan ahead. Our life development after finishing high school, there's always the life designed already for you without much freedom to choose from. you go to university, and at a certain age, you get a job, and at a certain age, you get married, promotions, and by the time of this age, you should have this amount of savings, for instance. We like to plan and save money and be prepared for any scenarios that could go wrong during studying in Canada, perhaps, because you could be vulnerable without any plannings and savings and proper documents in the foreign countries.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's very, very different.
It is. Some students spend 2 years before they actually fly here, because the initial stage is like, I want to go to Canada, but what's best for me? And they start talking about all the options and what's the best timing for them, especially because in Japan, there's always timings. That right after finishing university, there's no gap years or anything like that. So if you're supposed to go directly diving into job huntings, otherwise human resources will be looking at your resume and why did you waste those 2 years doing nothing? You have to be always accountable for the times that's being lost, whether for it's studying or traveling or gap years or anything. So timing is really important to be successful in Japanese job hunting.
That sounds very, very serious, but I love that order because I miss that in my life or my culture. So sometimes I think I'm good fit with the Japanese women because what I have, they miss, which is a little bit, you know, being spontaneous or being just, you know, without any plan. Let's just follow our intuition and do things as they come. Whereas they're impacting me with that sometimes overthinking, or planning, which I love, which I miss. So maybe that's why we are such a good fit.
Yeah, somewhere being between these two would be probably the best attitude, as you can't plan everything and not doing anything, but at the same time, impulsive decisions for such as adventures might result into the accidents or tremendous loss of finances or any other aspect. So yeah, I do agree with you.
What about the students who are in Canada? How are you actually helping them?
Once they travel here and until they settle down, they probably need more assistance since they don't know what to expect, and communicating with homestaying family might be a little obstacles, or they don't know how to get by every day without someone who knows what to do. And even after a while, they'll be able to handle most situations such as getting groceries or shopping at the 7-Elevens, but there's always some events or instance that happens once in a while. For example, your house owners might try to rip them off, or you get a sudden invoice from the phone company that charges them more than they expected. And those times that they come to us and asking for advice. And the other part is educational plannings. I know you say, oh, here comes plannings, but their time they are allocated to stay in Canada is always limited because of immigration matters. So they wanted to maximize the experiences and as best as they can, especially when they are halfway through of their planning and staying or studying. They think about the future, like, what can I do for the rest of their stay in Canada? And you wanted to gain the biggest achievement as a souvenir to bring it back to Japan in order to impress your human resources person. That's how they come to me and get they might pick up some special programs such as to get English scores or business programs, or someone they might consider extending their stay in order to achieve further educations. So that is what we are here to assist them for the best choices.
Yes, and you know what I'm now thinking of? Are you one of those who are pushing them to go in one direction? Like, for example, if you see that they can accomplish something or they can expand. And, you know, as a teacher, I used to push my students outside of their box just to open up another perspective. Are you doing that, or you are just following their needs and their wishes?
Well, at the end of the day, it's up to the students how to pick, but definitely one of our roles is to laying out all the options of what they can possibly do before regretting that things that they did not do, and reminding them of the potentials they have, the areas that they don't even realize by themselves. So yeah, I would say yes.
I want to go back just to talk more about these homestay families. That's one of the biggest challenges, one of the biggest challenge for the students as well as for Canadian families. So what is actually going on when students enter somebody's house or place? What is the arrangement between those two parties?
Well, homestay families are responsible for providing the one bedroom, some lights and desk, bed, or some basic furnitures, and also providing the 3 meals a day and internet, some other things. But the biggest portion is for students is to experience the Canadian lifestyle while living with them, in exchanging cultures and interacting each other, sharing how the day went, etc. So the expectations the students bring into the family is to get to know each other and learn some Canadian culture and aspects. On the other hand, the communication issues always arise, as students don't automatically know how to speak English fluent or express themselves in a way they want to. But also Canadian families nowadays are busy. It might not be so much due to COVID nowadays, but both couples are working outside, they pick up kids, and kids have baseball practice for kids perhaps, and they all have activities going on and on and on, and they don't necessarily share dinner time together every single day. And homestay mother might pick up some fast food for dinner once in a while. So that's a little some gap between expectations of students and the family.
And you see, if we go now back to the beginning of our conversation, that's the thing, like those expectations are actually the thing you are dealing with when you are traveling into one country and back, coming back and forth. We all want to imagine that we are going to something bigger, brighter, better. You know, we all have those dreams, but reality is many times different. So it's not just lowering your expectations, but being more realistic. So in a sense, what you did and I did by going back and forth, you had time to actually evaluate and decide to relocate. But in their case, I do understand them, especially if you're going abroad first time. Most of the time you will be disappointed, in a way disappointed. You always expect, if you find something beautiful, but I didn't connect. If you connect, oh, I wish I had more time. So it's always something you'll be missing. What do you think?
Absolutely. Like Japan is well-developed, convenient country itself, and they're always compared to what they have in Canada towards what they used to have in Japan. And it's not always the best, but that's a part of cultural adventures they are seeking for initially. And the other thing is, I don't encourage them to just lose their expectations or anything, but more like I encourage them to try communicating better, trying to express themselves better in order to gain the better results. Like homestaying families won't be reading their minds without communicating directly. If something is not ideal, they could express what they wish they could gain or what they wish things are different. And the homestaying family might be able to accommodate the request, or they might be able to make a micro adjustment to satisfy their needs. And that's how they develop the relationships together. But unfortunately, I'm one of Japanese who's initially not who's not able to speak up as much as we wish. And Japanese culture trained us to just put up with any inconvenience, just deal with, not to say anything, because we like to avoid conflicts or disagreements at any cost. And on top of that, a lot of Japanese students are in their early or mid-20s who doesn't have much life skills enough to address the issues and seek for solutions. So that often results in some issues between families and students.
It is hard. It is hard, especially in early 20s. And what you just mentioned, I happen to learn from my Japanese friends that in your culture, you're not talking if you don't have something to say which will contribute to the topic, to the conversation. And when I heard that from my friend Tomomi, I was like, are you serious? Yes, we were taught that way. So if you don't say something valuable, if you don't have something valuable to say, you better be quiet. I'm like, oh God, in my culture, nobody would talk then.
Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, it is the case that where they're often non-Japanese people are blah, 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 whether they think it's meaningless or meaningful, but that we are trained not to do that. That's the worst thing. We wanted to do that. So that's quite different.
Yes. Akiko, this is also the real life situation in which you are actually bridging the distance between Japanese student and a Canadian homestay family. So you're really a bridge maker, because sometimes they don't know how to express. This party don't know how to, they don't understand them, or they don't know why they're acting this way. So in a sense, you are a translator who is bridging the gap. So this situation can be very hard. How do you do that?
It is really hard. There's one student that one time a week after she was placed into family, and the family was nice enough to ask the student to list all the groceries she wants the family to buy because they are going grocery shopping. And the student came up to me saying that she doesn't know what's available in Canadian grocery shopping. Isn't that funny?
Can you So she didn't put anything?
Well, she gave me a little advice, so I could just introduce them where typical North American breakfast could be the cereals or porridge or toasted jams, eggs or juice, fruits, etc. And with my advice, she could develop some idea to write down something. But that kind of broke my mind to realize that the students don't even know what's available at the grocery store.
Yes. But can you imagine, like, Canadian family wants to be, wants to show that welcome spirit, like whatever you want, just write down. And the other one is like, I don't know, I don't want to be rude. Plus, I don't know what are you eating. So it's really hard to connect those two worlds.
It is. Yeah, to answer your questions, in terms of how to resolve the disagreements between family and friends, our philosophy is always, the principle is always simple: to encourage this to talk directly, to minimize the interference from us. Because at the end of the day, we don't live with them, and what we know is 100% of what we hear from each of them. So it's always the best for them to directly talk to each other to solve the issues, to avoid the, hey, I heard from Aki this, hey, oh, Aki told this, and that doesn't bring us any solutions. And adding to that, that we could sometimes step in only when necessary to translate what the students say and what the family says. But we try to avoid that scenarios as much as possible.
You know, the advice I would give to people, I would say, you will be feeling very uncomfortable, but that's the right feeling. You have to be uncomfortable, because that's actually the emotion which will at the end result with that stretching, when you will at the end learn, observe more, learn about, or ask yourself what is going on, and stretch yourself outside of your comfort zone and ask questions or communicate. But first it starts with that uncomfortable state. I don't know what to ask. I don't know what it is. This is different. This is not what I was expected. But stay in that state and just stretch yourself. Get out of that state by asking or by proposing.
Those moments are always a part of adventures or the studying abroad experience as they initially sign up for. We definitely wanted to avoid any issues or disagreements, etc. But at the same time, things happen to anyone, no matter how much you're prepared for. And how to deal with them kind of disagreements are always part of the adventures.
Can we talk now more about your students? I want to imagine them. So can you help me by saying, what is their age? What is their gender? What is their age and gender?
I would say 70–80% of our clients are female and the rest are male. And I don't know why. I think Japanese men have more high responsibility and commitments to provide family in the future culturally, so they are less likely to quit their jobs, or they're cutting down all the distractions towards gaining success in their jobs, and studying abroad could be one of their distractions. Or women are more brave than men, I don't know. And to continue, their age runs from the early 20s towards 30, in their 30s, 40s, depends. But typically, I would say between early 20s and late 20s. And nowadays, more and more students are considering to go to universities or colleges in Canada. And in order to do so, they start taking language schools first in order to meet admission requirements. But typically, they wanted to explore the world and learn more, develop more language skills. So they come here working holidays or even study permit, so that they could go to school and take on volunteer activities or meeting local people.
And you mentioned that the main reason for coming to Canada is learning English. I want to talk more about English, and now we have to go back to Japan and Japanese school system. So what is going on with an English? Is that a mandatory subject in your schools? When are you starting to learn?
Well, educational system is changing, and I'm not even up to date much, but
what was like 10 years ago when you
at
came?
least between grade 7 to 12, there's a mandatory education of English as a school curriculum. So they take down English classes in all public and private schools. And nowadays, educational ministry is trying to implement English schools for early generations. So I believe the elementary school has implemented English school as a curriculums already. But the thing is that they focus on readings and memorizing vocabularies instead of communication aspects. So that typically Japanese students, including how I used to be, knows a lot of vocabularies and they are able to read, but that their communication skills needs to be improved in order to carry out everyday conversations.
It's always like when you start learning some language, foreign language, there are always 4 skills that you have in mind. And it starts with listening and reading, which is like basics. You have to listen and understand, or read and understand. And it's always like in my country, there is a lot of grammar, a lot of, you're always going through the dictionaries and memorizing words, expressions, and doing all the tests. But actually the real stuff is coming with those second 2 skills, or the upper skills, which is writing and speaking. And for that, you need practice. You need practice, and you need to be in touch with people, with peers, people, whatever, because by listening music or watching TV, you're not there. You think you are, but the real life situation will put you in the right, how can I say, the real life situation will give you actually the sense, where are you?
It is, absolutely. That's a great point as to Japanese students are comfortable with doing homework, for example, and memorizing formulas and vocabularies and show some knowledge on the test. But when it comes to English learning, you're gonna take on as a sort of project. And you're trying to express yourself and trying to listen and understand others. That's more like a practice than studying, in my understanding, because you're gonna put yourself in a very uncomfortable situation where you don't understand the other person's saying, or you're trying to express yourself, but not able to find the vocabularies and phrases. After repeating those scenarios and mistakes or anything, that's how you gain confidence and improve your skills. And ironically, that's the part that a lot of Japanese people are not good at with.
So they're avoiding those situations?
Their first instinct is that they don't say anything until they develop the completely grammatically correct sentence, and you just say it. But that's not how it works in the conversation. It's going on in instant conversations, and you wanted to say something before, being double checking whether the sentence you're going to say is grammatically correct or not, or pronunciation correct,
But we are both in those shoes pretty much every day. I don't have any problem expressing myself in my language, and I would say that's my like the real strength, being able to express myself and say whatever I feel, whatever I think. But doing that in English, still after 9 years spending here, is actually giving me a lot of trouble. And it is about your own expectations as well as the expectations that are coming from other people. you should have known that, you should have said. Sometimes, after 20 minutes or 2 hours after I finished something, or I, pressed send for the message, I was like, oh, I supposed to write that, I supposed to say that. So it's always, I do understand their struggle. That's what I want to say. I do understand their struggle and their feeling of, I'm not there, I'm not on that level, I don't feel comfortable, I am, I'm, always seeing yourself from that lack perspective.
It is. Mm-hmm. There's an expectation things. A lot of Japanese students feel that if they stay in Canada for 3 months, their English should be automatically improving, whether how much they're exposing themselves to other people, or how much they're speaking every day or not. But in reality, you have to actively seek for the opportunity to engage with various people from different backgrounds. Some might speak ancient English from higher, a different generation. So other people have accent from different cultures. We all speak differently, and even like young kids, they speak like full of jargons and modern vocabularies. Older generation would have to think twice. So the English is a life learning journey. It never ends. And that's how we get to know as immigrants after living here for years and years. But for someone who just arrived here, it might not be resonating well as much.
Yes. For the communication, you need 2 persons, you need 2 parties. So both of them need to be willing to communicate and to understand.
Absolutely.
And sometimes, whatever and it doesn't matter how much if the other side is not willing to talk or communicate or connect, it's not on you. You cannot control that. So sometimes, I'm just praying for good people, and not just opportunities, but good people that I can connect with, that wants to connect. We are coming finally to 2020, and this is the year of tremendous change, and it's happening all around the world, in every country, every culture, in every family. And I want to know what is happening in your job. So what actually happened with the students, for example, from Japan, who didn't manage to come, or they were supposed to come in March, April, or May this year, when Corona actually changed everything?
Yes, quite a few people are planning to come to Canada at the time that COVID outbreak happened. And with the immigration policy, they had no choice but to postpone. For those with valid study permit, only some students with certain conditions are able to travel. But the first instinct for them is just to pause and see what happens. And the months pass by, a few months pass by, they gain more and more information and to determine whether they are able to enter the border or they have to wait until things are sorted out.
And what actually happened? Did they come at the end to Canada, or they're still
in September, August? Some students actually came with certain conditions. But until then, there's a lot of government policies changing really frequently, and there's regulations. And again, I put the hat on as a translator. And I need to inform them what to do and what's the risks to take, and rehearse what they're going to say at the border.
And what is happening with the students who had to postpone? You just mentioned that Japanese students are very serious and they're seriously planning this for years. And suddenly, you also mentioned some the information about the hiring system in Japan. So if you can put those data together, what is now happening with them?
Yeah, a lot of them North Americans will say, oh, if you can come to Canada, why don't you just wait? Waiting for a few years wouldn't kill you. That is true, but in some aspects for Japanese hiring system, it doesn't allow certain people, such as some students who just going to graduate university. They only start hiring new employees at a certain time of the months of the year. There's only a small window that students has to register for them job postings. And if you miss out the deadline, you have to wait for another year or another year, and the human resources will look at the resume and asking you why, and the higher level of accountability will be required to explain your absences. For those reasons, for those who doesn't want to take a risk of being missing out or being left behind, a lot of them unfortunately made a choice not to giving up or them coming to Canada and just focus on them their life journey of getting them prospective jobs, because the risk they're going to take wouldn't be small.
Yes, I feel so sorry for them, because I can imagine being in their shoes and planning and, you know, saving money, maybe quitting job just because I want to come to Canada for those few months and I want to learn, I want to explore. You know, it's a perfect timing for them. But suddenly now you have to cancel everything. You cannot postpone, because if you find a job, the agency which will hire you won't allow you to get out next year. So you are actually giving up one dream, one very important dream.
It is. And quite a few students know, well, it's normal for Japanese hiring system that once you pass over 30 years old, your opportunity for getting new job would be decreasing significantly. Due to that reason, another group of students gave up their plan to come to Canada because their age is approaching towards 30 years old. They can't waste their time anymore and just trying to jump on the better opportunities now or never.
Sounds very serious. What is happening with the students who decided to come or who were already in Canada when COVID situation put us in quarantine or self-isolation? Because, you know, now I'm imagining them. They have hard time to communicate. We also mentioned some problems which are coming up with the homestay families, with not being able to, you know, express themselves. And suddenly, you know, they're on online classes, they're not interacting with their study group, they cannot go back, they're in self-isolation. So I want to imagine, or I want to hear how they were managing themselves through those, especially first 3 months, which were hard, at least here in Victoria.
It is hard for those who go through the self-isolations. It's really hard for the 2 weeks of not interacting with anybody. But the biggest challenge would be sometime after that for some students are allowed to go to school to attend the physical classes, which is not too bad. But for other area provinces of Canada, some schools are not offering face-to-face classes. And online programs definitely works for some students, but not so much for others. And making friends or meeting locals or engaging volunteering opportunity, those plans would be severely affected as we are encouraged to limit down social interactions to the core group of people, which is often homestaying family and few classmates if you go to school.
Yes.
And for those who was in Canada when the COVID hit us, had options whether they go home directly or they choose to stay. The thing is that we had a fear that if you wait long, the flights might be canceled and you might be stuck in Canada even though they want to go home. So a lot of students immediately chose to go home because they don't want to take a risk of not being able to fly when they want to. And others choose to stay for a while and eventually pursue their studying to go to colleges or universities. I noticed the majority of them who choose to stay, regardless of the lot of disadvantages, are likely to have a big dream and a community to support them, such as they go to colleges and universities and trying to get permanent residencies. Those dreams shouldn't be interrupted just because COVID happens. And they often don't have any plan B in Japan anyways.
But they are under a lot of pressure. People who have, their lives here are struggling with loneliness and depression, and it affects them. It affects them, their everyday life. Can you imagine somebody who just arrived, who doesn't know anybody, who doesn't know how to express themselves, who had those big dreams, and now, things are just, he's missing out. He's missing out. Some of my friends, for example, moved from one city to Victoria last year, and they wanted to embrace all those festivals. I was always talking about that, like how gatherings in Victoria during the summer are amazing. And you can meet people, and there is art exhibitions. There is, always something going on in parks, in downtown. And now they missed everything. And they, although they have their own lives, they work, they have each other, they feel, bad. They feel like, I wanted 2021 to be the best year. I don't want to slow down this much. I'm losing it every day. For someone who is a foreigner in this country and he or she just came here, I think the struggle is sometimes I would say, I don't want to say unbearable, but it's hard. It's very hard.
It is unimaginable to me.
It is.
Well, there's a lot of factors associated to their life, like isolation or lack of connections, definitely one thing, as their schools are often delivered online and they can't hang out with friends or anything. And also the health concerns without any much information that's delivered in their own languages. Or financial aspects, they might have been planning to get a part-time job or working and get some incomes, but due to COVID, the hiring system has been severely affected, and lack of income, their life would be really hard.
Plus, they have parents who are probably scared, not having them here, not having them in Japan, not being able to help them, support in any way.
Parents are really worried for sure. COVID is affecting all across, the whole world and including Japan. But the biggest difference is that students are living possibly by themselves or they're apart from family who comfort them. And when COVID symptoms might arise at any point, they might not be having access to the medical care. If they do, they might not be knowledgeable of what to do or who to contact.
And these are the times when there are a lot of divisions. You know, there is a lot of polarities, and there is a lot of blaming and you know, a lot of things which I think we should, you know, this is the time when we should actually act as one, and we should better understand each other now when we are in the same shoes. But on the other side, it's happening, you know, what is happening is completely different. You know, we always choose somebody to blame or to see this from one angle, but not the other. So I would be, as a parent, I would be, you know, I would be thinking if my child would be, you know, stigmatized in any way, or, you know, somebody would point fingers, and they're still young. You don't know, as you said, they don't have those life skills, not just social, but life skills, you know, how to handle those situations, how to ground themselves and just go about their day and their stuff, not being bothered with what is happening around them. It is a scary place to be.
It is.
Do you have any story to share? Do you have any?
Yeah, we have quite a few students who choose to stay regardless. There's one girl who arrived 2019. She's in her late 20s. And before she arrived, her heart was set to go into colleges in Canada. And she spent months and months studying basic English and at the language school. And she finally got accepted to the colleges she wants to go to. And that's the time COVID hit.
Oh.
Even though for student as determined and committed as she has been, she has to think twice of what to do. Her parents are calling and wondering, is she out of her mind to choose to stay, or well, who cares going to college? You just go to Japanese college instead. And her classmates and school, her friends are going home one after another, and there's not so many friends around her as much anymore. And her college made an announcement that the classes would be delivered online, and she wouldn't be having that much campus life in exactly the way she has imagined for the years and years. And she has to ask herself whether she really wants to stay and pursue her dream in the way she designed, or if she can just turn around and go back to Japan and start over.
So what did she decide?
She decided to stay.
Brave girl, brave girl.
Cons and options and risks associated, but with the encouragement of her roommate who stayed with her, and she decided to stay. And she's taking, she's going to finish the first semester soon, and doing very well.
Amazing, amazing story. I'm cheering for her. I'm cheering for her because she, I don't want to say that she made a good decision, but she stick to her decision, and that's brave enough. And I wish that all doors will be open soon for her. Oh, that's amazing. Any else story?
There's a girl who wasn't working holiday, and she was supposed to go home on July 2020 because her visa was expired. But she came up to me, said she wants to extend her stay. I was really surprised to hear that, as that was not her initial plan to extend her stay after that. And due to COVID, things are quite different. And she has considered all the pros and cons. And, you know, if she wants to, she goes back to Japan. Japan suffered by COVID in the same way. And with the current hiring situation, it's not quite positive. And she always felt like she needs to improve her English, and she wants to study something more academic with the English skills she gained from her experiences. There's a lot of potential risks that school might be shut down again, might have visa, might not be arriving as planned, or she might not be able to find a job due to COVID. But all the risks considered, she chose to stay, and she got in one of the colleges that take in the hospitality programs, and she's doing very well.
Amazing, amazing, amazing stories. And that's why I think I would love your job, because in a sense, you're reliving your story, you know? And, you know, by supporting them, I would imagine that I'm supporting some, you know, ex-Natasha who I needed somebody just to, not to guide me, but to, you know, to be there and cheer for me. And I appreciate everybody who would just, you know, gave me one information. Back then, it was so hard to get, you know, one useful information. And I would be, you know, attached to people who wanted to help me in any way. So now when I go back and say, you know, 20 years after, there is Akiko, and there is a lot of agencies who are supporting people to go through this process, and knowing how hard it is, and knowing how you can actually help them, how you can actually nurture, how you can, you know, give them the word they need, the confidence they need, the right advice, or, you know, just put them in the direction, like, look that way, just avoid that noise, look at this way, it will be, you know, it will be good at the end, just, you know, keep going. During just one day, you're, as we said, a teacher, a guide, a parent, a sister, a buddy, a nurturer. You are whatever they need, you are. But do you have any formula? Like, how do you approach your job?
We do. We have, well, my company has a policy to inform the student and assisting them with the best decision they select. Yeah, there are some couple formulas to respect their personal informed choices, and yeah. And I have the different approach. It's depend on the clients, of client's age and personality, and yeah.
But I'm guessing that you're usually giving them, like, what is the plus, what is the minus? Like, these are the pros. If you decide to go this way, what, you know, this can happen, or that. So you're, in a sense, just giving them all the information they need and holding the space for them to decide in which direction. You're actually a teacher. that's
yeah,
actually.
I also feel that way, actually. It's great to hear from someone who is actually a teacher.
Yes, I was, and I was a teacher in Europe, and that's my next question. I used to bring my job home. I used to not know how to make a distance. So especially the problems I couldn't resolve. I struggled with that. I was overwhelmed, emotionally drained. So I want to ask you, what are you actually doing to, how are you holding the space for you when things are not, you know, going good?
Well, as a matter of fact, I work for hospital environment as a nurse for 8 years in Japan. Oh. So it's, well, I don't say it comes as easy, but I'm used to dealing with someone's loss or someone's accident or a tragic accident at work and not bringing anything home. With my current job, it's it's tempting to think about work outside the work, or things that I could have done or I could have considered, or students that I assisted and wondering how they are doing or anything. But again, I like to say I'm good at setting boundaries, especially my yoga practice and exercise really helps to clear up my mind.
Yes, grounding, setting up the boundaries, trusting yourself, I would say. But you're, Akiko, I would say, a natural caregiver, because you were working as a nurse and now you're also nursing, you know? You do. This is more like emotional support. And okay, you're bringing a lot of useful information, but in a sense, you're also taking care of the other. And now you know how to set up the stage, how to be in your shoes, put those boundaries, give the options, hold the space, but let them be in any, or like meet them where they are.
Yeah. With if you're first year of nursing students, the first thing you learn is you have to care about yourself first in order to go care other people. It's like an oxygen tank at the airplane, and when in case of the accident, you put the oxygen tank mask on yourself first before putting on your child, so that you are able to help them.
Yes, that's nowadays the recipe also for motherhood. Like you have to be in a good place if you want your child to be in the same. Akiko, I enjoyed our conversation a lot. Thank you so much for showing up. Thank you, and I can say arigato domo.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to share my life story almost. And I hope that our audience could take a use of our video and have a better choices for them.
Yes, I know that a lot of people can relate to your story. And now I wish when they hear all about international students, you know, from Japan or elsewhere, that they can know better what is going on the other side, so they can try to connect or reach to them easily. Like if you understand what other people are going through, you can do your best to connect, to communicate, and to care for them.